Hey everyone, this is Carrie from Carrie's Wreath Creations. Thank you for joining me today for this tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to make a 3-layer flower wreath. If you've purchased a wreath kit from my shop, I will have these available for Valentine's Day, so that's kind of what this is going to be themed towards. If you did not purchase a kit, you can still follow along to see the process. But feel free to visit my Etsy shop. It's called carrieswreathco.etsy.com in order to purchase one of these kits. So I'll be referring to the kit throughout this video, including what comes in the kit. But I do plan to make these for different seasons. And again, if you have the materials, you can certainly do this on your own. So the first thing I want to go over is the materials you've received. So you will have received a 10-inch wreath frame. You'll have a piece of plastic canvas mesh that has been cut in the shape of a circle, and you'll also see a black marker outline on the canvas mesh. You'll have received zip ties, a pipe cleaner. This is a cable mount with a sticky on the back. You'll also have received, for this Valentine's kit, and again, I might have different kits in the future, but for the Valentine's kit, you'll have an unpainted wood heart. You'll also have a little sample of paint in order to paint your center. I'll have different colors available for the Valentine's one. It will be either silver or gold, so this is gold. You can either use the paint provided, you could do something totally different with your center, but that's what's going to come in the kit. And then also you will have received a selection of pre-cut poly burlap mesh. So I have different colors here to show you sort of what the options are, and there will be different color combinations available, but basically we're doing a 3-layer petal, 3-layer flower with the same petal on each layer, but your petals are going to be, I have red, and this is poly burlap cut at 10 by 10 inch squares with a wood burning tool. It will already be cut when you receive it. This is a fuchsia color. All of the kits will come with the white check burlap mesh for your middle layer. This is a regular, just standard pink. And I don't have the label for this one, but I believe this is just a light pink color. Okay, so it's all cut at 10 by 10. So what we're going to do is work through the process of putting this wreath together. Again, you can do this with any flower that you want to make with 3 layers. Again, this is a kit that's going to be in my Etsy shop. The link will be in the description box below. So I'll be referring to the kit throughout the video and what you've received in the kit, but you can certainly do this with any of the materials that you have on hand. So I'm going to move some of this out of the way. I'm going to be working with the red first. Okay. I also wanted to point out there are a couple of things that you may wish to have for this wreath kit that don't come in the box. The first would be you're going to need something to paint with. So this is just a foam sort of brush. You can usually get these at Dollar Tree. You're going to need something to clip your zip ties off with. You can either use wire cutters like this. You may want to have a pair of scissors on hand as well. And I'm going to be using some glue to reinforce my cable mount, which is going to hold my heart onto the center of the wreath. So this here is called DAP Rapid Fuse. I'm going to use a little bit of this, and I'm also going to use some hot glue. So we're actually going to start by prepping our center. Reason I'm doing the center first is because it needs to be painted, so it needs time to dry. You'll also want the paint to dry, the paint and the glue on the back to dry too. So again, you'll have your unfinished wooden heart, and you'll have whatever paint color you chose that was with the kit. And I've already painted one silver and one gold, so I'm going to use one of these just because I don't think I need to show how to paint. Just I did 2 layers, just even brush strokes, and I'll let it dry fully. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll just go ahead and use the silver one. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go onto the back here, and I'm going to give this a little bit of a shake. And I'm using more glue. This is sticky on the back here, but I'm using glue because I just want it to be extra secure. Sometimes in different types of weather, the sticky stuff on the back of these cable mounts might not stick completely. So I like to just kind of reinforce. I'm just using a small little dab. I'm peeling off the back, and I'm placing that right in the center. Okay. So that on, and you could use Gorilla Glue. I just want to make sure I have something that's going to stick really well. This says it bonds to virtually anything. I want to make sure I have something that's definitely going to bond well to this wood. Since this is a real piece of wood, it's not cardboard or anything like that. I am going to reinforce this then by taking my hot glue gun, and I'm just going to kind of outline here just to make it, give it some extra security here. Since this is a Valentine's Day wreath, it'll be hung up in, winter months, so you don't really have to worry about hot glue melting, which it sometimes will do in very warm climates. But you don't need to really worry about that here too much, since February, Valentine's Day, you're not going to really worry about those really extreme temperatures, but it's still, to me, a good idea to, just keep this reinforced as best as possible with some extra glue. So I'm going to put this aside and let it dry. Now let's talk about how we're going to prep our wreath frame. So again, you have this piece of plastic canvas mesh that has been cut out, and this is going to go in the center of the wreath frame. The reason we're doing that is because we need petals on the inside of the wreath frame. Okay, so in case you're buying your own supplies, I've cut from this already, but it's you find this plastic canvas in the usually in the embroidery section of a craft store. This is number 5 mesh. There's also number 7 where the squares are a little bit smaller. That will work as well. I just prefer the number 5 whenever I can find it. So I'm going to need zip ties, and what I'm going to do is, and again, I have this black circle here. This is going to help me guide, act as a guide for my petals that need to go on the inside of this flower. So I want that facing up. It won't show when we're done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through one of the squares with my pipe cleaner and go onto the inside wire of my wreath frame. I'm going pretty close to the bracket, which would be these pieces here, and I'm just tightening it. I'm going to do that. There's a total of 5 brackets. I'm going to do 1 at each. Now I do have, and this happens sometimes after you attach, I have a little bit of extra here. This isn't going to really interfere too much, but I'm just going to kind of clean that up by just snipping a little bit of this off. I'm just kind of cutting it right where the inside wire is, just so I don't have any sort of extra. Okay, so that's a little bit better. I still have some here, but that's okay. Attach this last zip tie on here. Okay, so those are all nice and secure. And then I'm going to go ahead and snip off these ends. These wire cutters are very inexpensive. I just bought them from the floral section at Walmart, but you can get them at pretty much any craft store, Lowe's, anything like that. Okay, so here's my wreath frame that has now been prepped and ready to go. So now let's talk about how we're going to start attaching the petals. Okay, so for this one, I'm actually kind of working on 2 at once just so we can kind of keep the process moving here. I'll have some that's kind of already done for us, so that way you're not watching me do the same thing over and over again, because it is a repetitive process. We're going to learn how to make the petals. We're going to learn where the petals go on the frame, and you'll be good to go. So what we're going to be doing is, if you look at this frame, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 wires. We're going to be working on bar 2 for the outer petals, bar 4 for the middle petals, and the plastic canvas, the black outline, for the third layer of petals. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have 20 on the outside, 10 on the middle, 5 on the inside. So when you receive your kit, you will have received a total of 35 pieces of pre-cut poly burlap, okay? Now, where are we gonna put these? We're starting on the outside, we're starting on bar 2, and we're gonna start at the bracket, okay? If you count here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 sections. Each section is gonna get 1 on the bracket and 3 in between. So basically it's gonna be 4, and then another 4 and another 4 until we get to 20, okay? So I like to lock in my zip ties before I fold my petals. That is personal preference. I just like to have them already, I put them on and I just do 1 or 2 clicks till they're secure on there and not going anywhere. And you see where I put that? It's on bar 2, right on the bracket. Okay, just like that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and fold my petal. Okay, so I have my pre-cut 10 by 10 piece of poly burlap. You will want to make sure that you don't overhandle this, because I did cut it with a wood burner, which means the ends have been basically like almost like melted. They've been like sealed, but the more you handle it, the more the chance that there could be some fray, and that's how your flower ends up kind of getting that sort of messy look with all the extra strands hanging off. So try to handle this as little as possible. If you need to watch the petal making technique a couple of times before you actually do it, you know, feel free to rewind or whatever you need to do. So we have our factory edges. Those are like these thicker parts on the top and the bottom, okay? I'm going to turn this into a diamond. I'm going to bring one end to meet the other, so it's corner to corner, right like that, okay? So I have a triangle. I'm gonna turn it on its side, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this under, and I'm going to start gathering. And I don't have a set number of gathers that I do. I just try to kind of keep them even. And then on the other end, I kind of do a little tuck at the end. So you're gonna get your petal that looks like this. Now, before you put it in your zip tie, just straighten it up a little bit, okay? You want your points to be as close together without kind of offsetting each other as possible. And you want your petal to be nice and rounded sort of under. Okay, so if you look at your petal from the side, this, you can see it has kind of a cup shape. We're gonna put it in like this so the cup is down. Okay, so I take my frame, and where I've pinched it, that is where I'm going to zip it right into the frame, give it one last sort of, and kind of stretch it a little bit. And that's my petal, okay? Next, going right next to where I just finished, I'm gonna lock this zip tie into place. So remember, we're doing 1 on the bracket and then 3 in between and then another on the bracket. So let's work through a couple more of these. Now I did want to show you one tip. So it can be difficult when you're just starting out to kind of, and even this one, mine didn't come out so great. If I weren't on video, I'd probably go back and redo this one or even cut it off, but we'll just kind of keep it for now. I really like those tips of my flower petal to stay together. It keeps it nice and neat looking. So a quick trick, these are craft clamps is what the package said. I found them at Dollar Tree, but you could use a chip clip. You could use really anything that has a clothespin would work as well. So again, I have my factory edges on the top and the bottom, turn it into a diamond, bring my 2 corners together, and here's where my clip's gonna come in handy. I'm gonna actually just clip the 2 ends right there to hold them together. So that way, when I turn it to its side and start gathering, I have something already holding my 2 little ends together. So that's gonna help keep them lined up as I gather, okay? So I can take that off now, or I could even leave it on until I put it in my zip tie. But see how nice and neat that came out, okay? And again, you're just kind of folding your petal under and then into the zip tie. And tighten that up, okay? So now there's my second petal. Okay, now what I did want to also point out is you want to make sure that your petals are overlaying each other a bit, and you want to make sure they overlay in the same way. My choice is to always have this factory edge on the top. So in this petal, the factory edge here is on the left side. So that's going to go over this petal here, because on the other side here, the top part of the petal is the cut side. So it just doesn't look quite as neat. Let's do that process again. Okay. So again, you have your cut piece, 10 by 10, factory edges, turn it into a diamond, bring your two ends to meet. If you are comfortable, you can move forward without clipping, but if you want to, you know, kind of keep those secure while you fold, you can certainly clip with either the clamp or a clothespin or a chip clip. And then again, I'm kind of just tucking this end under just so it doesn't stick out funny. Gives me sort of a nice, since I'm rounding my petals under, it's helpful to kind of tuck those ends under, so that way when you're forming the way you want your petal to look, it's already sort of folded under here. Okay, there's my petal, and it goes right into my zip tie. Okay. And each one I'm adding is overlapping the one that's already there. Okay. So I have one on the bracket. I have two. I need to do one more. And you know, these can slide a little bit. If you haven't quite spaced them out the right way, just go ahead and slide them over. I'm going to show you one other technique that I don't necessarily use for making the petals, but some people do like to use it, because for some people, when they see me gathering, they want to know how many folds is that? How do you know the folds are even? I've just been doing it enough that I kind of know the feel of how much I want to grab at once. But here's another way you could do it. So you have your factory edges on the top and the bottom, turn it into a diamond, and then bring your two ends together. Go ahead and clip that. Now, another way you can do it, instead of starting at the end and gathering, you can start in the middle and grab, say, maybe that's an inch. Okay, and then what you can do is sort of accordion fold this, and then you can kind of count how many folds you're doing on either side. So you're kind of just doing where it goes back and then forward, like that. Okay, and so you still get a very nice looking petal that you can shape. For some people, that's their preferred method of doing this type of petal. And right into the zip tie. And then finally, I've now done one on the bracket. I have 3 in between, and I'm going to hit the last bracket. So we're going to do one more, and then I'm going to kind of speed up and go to the next part. So this zip tie, again, is going on bar 2. It's at the bracket, so this one can't move back and forth. It's stuck where it is, which is what I want. Okay. And then one last petal. And gathering. I have my petal, okay, and right into the clip. You can certainly clip your zip ties as you go. I just usually do them all at the end. Okay, so I would follow this same process all the way around with my red petals. Okay, I'm going to do sort of magic of the internet here. And like I said earlier, I'm working on 2 simultaneously here. So I have one that has the outer layer completely done. So that's going to help speed this along a bit. So I'm going to put this one aside. And just like that, yes, this is a different color. This is fuchsia on the outside. I only have one left to do on the outside. But again, the process is pretty repetitive. I'm not going to need the red anymore, but I am going to use this. So the process is very repetitive. It's the same petal. If you are skilled at wreath making and you know different petals, you're certainly welcome to experiment with sort of mixing and matching different petal styles to see how you like the look of that. But I have 19. Here's number 20. Here's my last piece. So I'm just going to show you how you sort of finish this off. And I did already clip the zip ties here, but I'll show you how I do that. And just this one's going to have to get sort of, there's plenty of room for it, so you're not really squeezing it in, but you do need to keep the consistency of, you know, the petals laying over one another, you are going to have to just kind of make a slight adjustment. So there's my petal. It goes into my zip tie. Okay. Okay. And see, I don't want it, maybe it's hard to see on camera, but it's not laying the right way. It should be that this one is over the top. That's just how all the rest of the petals are, and it keeps it consistent looking. Okay, and then I take my clippers and I just clip that off. Okay, so that's layer one. Okay, so a total of 20 petals on the outside. Now let's move to the second layer, and that is going to be the white check mesh. Okay, so as I said earlier, we're working on, this was bar 2 that we worked on. This is bar 3, which we're going to skip. We're going to bar 4, which is the inner bar, and it's where the plastic canvas is attached. So I'm going to be doing 10 petals, and it just makes sense in order to keep the spacing nice to put one on the bracket and one in between. Since there's 5 sections, there's 5 brackets, that's how we're going to do it in order to get our 10 petals. So I'm going to put my zip tie right at the bracket, and you can use the mesh at this point if you'd like. If you want your zip tie to go through one of the little squares to hold it in place, you can. I don't think it really hurts either way if you do or don't. Okay, so I have my zip tie at the bracket, and then here is my white check mesh. This is a little bit more difficult to deal with than the regular mesh because of the bigger square cutouts, but it still works basically the same way. So make sure I got enough room so we can see what we're doing. So here are my factory edges. Okay, here are my cut edges. So same thing where I turn it into a diamond, bring them corner to corner, turn it on its side, and gather. Okay. And same thing where I'm, forming my petal. I like to form them before I put them in the zip tie, because if they're kind of all wrinkly and then you put them in the zip tie, you're gonna have a harder time trying to straighten it. And again, it's cup down for this particular flower that I'm doing. It's a different look to do the cup up. And sometimes I see where the cup is down on the outside and then in the middle layer might be with the cup up. It's just a totally different look, and it's whatever your personal preference is. Okay, so this is going into the zip tie that I had prepped earlier. And there's that. So again, I said I'm doing one on the bracket, which was that one, and now I'm doing one in between the 2 brackets. So again, you can go through one of the little squares of the canvas at this point if you wish, since it's right next to that bar 4. I sometimes do and sometimes don't, quite honestly. I kind of like the flexibility of being able to move that petal a little bit if I don't like where it's laying. And if you go through the square, you'll have a little bit of a harder time moving it around on the bar. Okay, factory edges, cut edges, turn it into a diamond. You can certainly use if you're using a clip of some sort to keep your 2 points together, certainly continue to do so as you work through this second layer. Gather. Okay, form your petal, make sure it looks nice and pretty. And, oops, there we go. And then it's going right onto the frame. Okay. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so we're starting to work on that second layer. Now, in order to save some time, I've actually already prepped a whole bunch of petals. I don't know that you need to see me do the petal technique 35 times since it's 35 petals. So I did prep some ahead of time. You can certainly rewind the video and re-watch how to make those petals if you need further instruction on that. But we're gonna just place these in here now. So again, I'm doing one on the bracket and one in between. So these little clips actually come in real handy because I know some people that make these flower wreaths and they will actually just form all their petals and clip them like that ahead of time. And then they go to their frame and they just place them all in there. So it's whatever you'd like to do. Okay. Another thing you could do, and this wouldn't really work with a kit because I'm only providing a certain number of zip ties, but if you had a whole bunch of zip ties and you're not too concerned about, you know, potentially, I guess, feeling like you're wasting them, you could actually go in and where I have these all clipped, you could actually zip tie them and then zip tie them into the frame. So you're kind of using double zip ties if you do that, but that works as well. Okay, so again, it's one on the bracket and one in between. I actually kind of like how fast this goes with having these clipped already. I've never actually prepped my petals ahead of time. I've always just folded them as I go, but it's kind of nice because, you know, I have to have enough room on my table, especially when I'm recording, in order to be able to show how I fold and then show how I attach them to the frame. And when they're already folded, I don't have to move things around quite so much. Okay. So I do plan to do more kits for other holidays as well. I definitely have one in mind. So I have a couple of variations here for Valentine's Day that I'll be offering. I have one in mind for sure for St. Patrick's Day, and probably a few different ones for spring. But I kind of want to use, I want to be able to, you know, if people really want to, this is my favorite kind of flower to do. And so I, you know, kind of want people, if they want to, you know, be able to sort of perfect one technique, I'll probably be showing them all in this very similar style where it'll be, you know, 3 kinds of mesh. So 3 layers of petals on the 10-inch frame, you know, maybe changing up what the center is a bit, but, you know, just, you know, you could do a lot of different things with the center too, but I know for St. Patrick's Day, I'd like to do maybe a shamrock in the center. I'm not really sure about spring yet, what I'm going to do, but I have some ideas. There also is another petal technique which would work for what you receive with this kind of kit. I don't know. I'm still debating if I want to do a video on that. I might make one on my own just to see if I like the way it looks. But basically, it's a pointier petal as opposed to this this sort of rounded petal. It's just a little bit different look, which still looks nice. But I still sell more of this sort of sunflower style more than anything else. So we'll see. Okay, and last one. All right, so this last one gets put in here, and just like on the outside, like I mentioned, you want to make sure your petals are overlapping in the exact same way on the inside too. So this last one just needs to be sort of tucked under a bit, okay? And then I'm going to clip off my ends with my zip ties here. All right, so that is layer number 2. So I know I started on if you fast forwarded it all and you said, I thought she started with red. I did. That was on, I have to finish, I'm working on 2 at once. So I did the fuchsia. I had the outer layer all the way done. So we're working off of that one now since it's more complete than the red one that I had started. But so we had 20 on the outside, here's 10 on the inside, and then we just have 5 left. We're going to use this pink. It's just a very medium shade of pink. If you're not familiar with poly burlap, this is what the label looks like. I do buy this online from places like Craft Outlet, the Wreath Shop, Trendy Tree, Deco Exchange. They do have a version of this in Michael's and Hobby Lobby. It's not quite the same quality. And you also receive less on the roll for almost the same amount of money. So it's actually, you do have to pay shipping, obviously, if you order online, but if you're doing a large quantity, like I usually do, you can get free shipping. And so that's what I usually do. But it comes in a 10 by 10 yard roll. And again, I've already pre-cut all of this for my kits into 10 by 10 inch squares using a wood burner. Okay, now, you can see where I have that black outline. It's not perfect. It's not perfectly in the middle, but it's good enough for a guide to show me where my last 5 petals need to go. Okay. Now what I'm going to do for those is not only am I going to use this black outline as a guide where I drew it in marker, I'm also going to use the brackets as a guide. So basically it's going to go here, right at the bracket and right where I have my, my marker, which is right about here where my finger is. So that's where I'm going to put my pipe cleaner or zip tie. Okay. So I put that in, I latch it. Okay, so you can see where that's at. It's probably a little bit more than an inch from the 4th bar. Probably, let me see, I can measure and tell you if I can find a line. It's a little more than an inch, about not quite an inch and a half. So if you didn't have the black outline, if you were doing this on your own at home, you can just kind of measure. It should be about an inch from the 4th bar. And I'm going to use this medium pink color for this inner layer. Heart should be dry by now. Let me just put that off to the side. So once again, with your folding your petals, you have your factory edge on the top and the bottom. Turn it to a diamond. Bring your 2 points together till you have a triangle. And then do your fold. Your scrunching. You can clip the tip there to keep the 2 points together, whatever you need to do. And we're forming our petals so it goes under like this. And right into the zip tie. Okay, and zip that in. Okay, and so now, again, this is the hardest layer because you don't have a great visual guide. Remember that we did put every other one of these white ones at a bracket, but you can always just peek around the back to find your next bracket, which is here. And then there's where my black marker line is. So I'm going right about here. Doesn't need to be exact, you know, just so they're somewhat evenly spaced around will be fine. So again, I'm about an inch to an inch and a half away from the that 4th bar. Okay. So this will be the last fold that I do because I do have the rest of these pre-made as well. So here is the factory edge on the top and the bottom, the cut edges on the sides, turn it into a diamond. And you know, the reason I keep repeating that is because you do want your factory edges, your cut edges, you want to do your petals the same way every time, because otherwise you'll have factory edges in different places. And to me, it just doesn't look quite as clean if you do that. So you do want to try to be consistent. Okay. And, you know, don't be afraid to really, you know, you don't want to be too rough with the poly burlap, but you can give it a good tug to try to, you know, really form it the way you want to. I kind of feel like this material has, it's kind of almost like it has a memory in that, you know, however you form it is the way it will eventually end up staying. So if, like I said, if you put the petal in here and it's all wrinkled, it's probably going to stay that way. So you want to make sure your petal looks nice before you put it in. Okay, so I do have the last 3 petals here prepped. So it's really just a matter of finding where I want them to go. So here's my bracket. I can see through here where that black magic marker, actually I used a Sharpie, but I can tell where that line is. So that's where I'm gonna go with this. I am a little bit off my marker line here because remember when I showed you it wasn't quite in the center. but it's really just a guide. It's not like it absolutely has to go there. It's just to help. I wasn't going to do that at all. I normally don't, but I thought maybe for a kid it would be helpful for people instead of kind of trying to stand there with like a ruler to measure how far you are from that inner bar and all that. And I know if you're new to making these, it can be kind of difficult to eyeball things the way I usually do. So that is why. So, and what I kind of did, since my circle that I drew was a little uneven, I started with where it was the largest distance from the wire frame. And now, so that was the very first one. And now I'm kind of using that one as a guide as well to help me figure out where I want to put these. If you're off by a little bit, it's not going to be very noticeable, if at all. I don't even think it would be. Okay. So all I'm doing, maybe it'll be more obvious when I get to the end here, but excuse me, I am making sure they're not really, the petals are not really overlapping in this layer, which is fine. But they are touching. So when I put this one in, it was more like this and there was a gap. So again, that poly burlap, you can kind of stretch it and it'll stay sort of wherever you put it. So last one, here's my bracket. There's my, my line. So it's going in right here. And I have my pre-folded petal here. And right in the zip tie. Okay. And that worked out pretty perfectly, even with my magic marker, my Sharpie, my black Sharpie line being a tad bit off center. Still worked out perfectly well. No one needs to know except for us on the video. So there's my last layer. Okay. So again, to recap, this was 20 on the outside on bar 2, 10 white on bar 4, which was the inside bar of the 10-inch wreath frame. And then I have 5 on the inside, the 3rd layer, which was working on this with this plastic canvas mesh. Okay. 10 by 10 pieces of poly burlap. We used the same petal style for all the layers. So now the last thing left to do is our center. So we already, at this point, if you hadn't painted it yet, you know, you have to paint it, wait for it to dry and all that stuff. I've already done that. So I'm going to use this silver metallic painted heart. It's just a, I don't know what the thickness is. I ordered these from an Etsy shop in a larger quantity. And then I used my little sort of sponge brush and my metallic paint, which you would receive a size about like this in your kit. This of course is gold, but whichever one you choose from your kit. So for Valentine's Day, we're using a heart. If this were another season, you would perhaps receive a different shape, possibly different color choices. I'm just working one season at a time here. So this is what we're looking at today. And it's gonna get placed right in the center here. Okay, now how are we gonna do that? Well, we did this already, okay? We have our pipe cleaner. Okay, you can certainly use a zip tie for this part too. It really doesn't matter. You can. If I gave you an extra zip tie, feel free. I just usually use a pipe cleaner and you're gonna get one in your kit. So this cable mount has an opening here, which is to put, actually cable mounts are usually for zip ties, but I have a white pipe cleaner that I'm using. So I put that through. I'm gonna give that a few twists. And then I'm gonna go to my wreath and I'm going to feed that right through the center here. And okay, that, make sure I like where that's at. I'm just gonna pull it real tight. And all I did was just feed it through that plastic canvas, give it a couple good twists in the back. Okay, you can certainly trim off these ends. I'm not gonna do that quite yet in case I want to make any adjustments, but there is my center of my heart. Okay. Oop, make sure it's not crooked. All right. So there you have it. Okay. And one of the other things you can do, as I'm looking at it on camera, you can see there's a few little spots where it's a tiny bit see-through. So all you're going to do is go back in there and just stretch your pink pieces just a little bit more. So that way there's no real gaps around that heart. And you can actually kind of, you know, tuck them behind the heart too. So that way you don't see any of that showing. And the way you could have eliminated that from the beginning was just move your pink petals a little bit closer to the center. That could have, you know, certainly prevented that problem too. But this works just as fine. Okay, there we go. I think that should be good. And if it's against it, once it's hanging up against something, you don't see that. It's really just because I have light behind it. So there we go. So that is our Valentine's Day wreath kit. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. Again, you can purchase wreaths that are already completed as well as wreath kits in my shop. My Etsy shop is Carrie's Wreath Co.etsy.com. I will leave the link in the description box below. I would also love to see you on my social media. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and TikTok as Carrie's Wreath Creations, which is the same name here as my YouTube channel. Thank you again for watching me today, and hope to see you on another video soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.